Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Around the Lens Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me not this week is Zach Roberts. He's actually in Minneapolis again, covering the ICE protests and everything that's going on over there. Or maybe other things. I don't know what he's covering. I imagine it's ICE related. We'll find out next week or whenever he's back on. But I'm proud to have two amazing returning guests onto the program, both Around the Lens alumni. My good friend from Syracuse University, Ethan Rocke. Hello, Ethan. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Dave.
And one of the most prolific photojournalists I've encountered recently, Mr. Josh Edelson. Hello, Josh. How are you?
Hello, how's it going?
Doing great, doing great. Glad to have you both on. So, for our viewers who may not know your records, go ahead and give them a quick breakdown of who you are and your experience in the field, just so they know. We'll start with you, Josh.
I'm a freelance photographer. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Most of my photojournalism work I do for AFP, Agence France Presse. And more specifically, my area of focus is in natural disasters. So tons of wildfires, floods, drought, um, things like that. A little bit of volcano. And I did just recently shoot the Super Bowl, which was pretty cool. So I've had a pretty illustrious photojournalism career. That's the briefest version. And then I also do corporate events and headshots. That's where I actually make my money. Sometimes it can be fun and glorious, but most of the time it's just kind of like pay the bills type of stuff, and that supports my ability to go out and chase the fun stories. So that's kind of my brief overview.
That's right. You have to eat your meat if you want your pudding.
It's true. Got to have a bread and butter income source.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Josh. Moving to Ethan. Go ahead and give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Ethan Rocky. I am a freelance photographer and filmmaker. My day job, I'm a full-time journalism and photography instructor, or I just like to say multimedia journalism instructor at San Antonio College. Um, and I've been doing this since about 2002 when I was a Marine combat correspondent. That was where Dave and I met because Dave was on the combat camera side, and I was a combat correspondent. But we got to go to Syracuse University together to the military photojournalism program, and then I got out of the Marine Corps, got my degree from Syracuse in photojournalism, then went on to get my master's in multimedia journalism from the University of Oregon. Go Ducks! And yeah, and then I've been freelance, my pretty much Ethan Rocky Media is my freelance company. Pretty much have run that since I got out of the Marine Corps. And I specialize in photojournalism, portraits, also occasionally corporate events and stuff, and then, a lot of documentary short films. And my big project for the past 4 or 5 years or so started in 2021 is I cover specifically cover how veterans and first responders are kind of like the tip of the spear in the psychedelic science and medicine kind of renaissance that's happening right now. So it's been like a book, film, like massive take over my life type of project for like the past 4 or 5 years or so. And I was really my big achievement in 2025 was really blessed to work on the Texas Ibogaine initiative, and so I did a lot of like documentary coverage of their legislative efforts and that whole campaign, and also produced some videos kind of telling the story of how Ibogaine was helping veterans. So yeah, that's and I also freelanced for the San Antonio Express News here in my local newspaper. Um, and yeah, that's me.
Awesome. What was that last thing you said? The Texas what initiative?
Texas Ibogaine Initiative. So Texas became the first in the nation to pass an ibogaine research bill. So the people of Texas invested $50 million in the way the legislation's written is it's like a public-private hybrid thing where people of Texas invest $50 million in ibogaine research through public universities, and then that gets matched by a like private industry investor. And the goal is to pass FDA trials for and bring ibogaine to the masses. Ibogaine, for anybody who doesn't know, is a incredibly powerful plant medicine, psychedelic plant medicine that indigenous people in Africa have been using for a really long time, and um, it appears, well, it definitely has extremely powerful effects for the treatment of substance abuse and addictions of all kinds. And so it could really revolutionize the way we treat addiction in the United States. And lots of like high profile people have gone down to Mexico and used it to heal from brain injuries, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, substance abuse disorder, operator syndrome, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, like I got brought onto that project and it was like, hey, you want to help us work on this tech cybersecurity initiative? I was like, yeah, let's tell some veteran stories and people who have healed from, extreme addiction and TBI and PTSD with this, and let's do our best and hopefully, probably won't pass, but it passed 138 to 2 in the Texas legislature. So
Wow.
now the people who were behind that, which is Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, have gone on to form Americans for Ibogaine, a nonprofit, and they're trying to help other states, bring similar legislation to their state houses and hopefully pass more much needed like psychedelic medicine legislation to help not just veterans, but people of all sorts with all the type of psychic and physiological needs.
Wow. Okay, great. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes for people who want to learn more about or support that cause. So,
Yeah, sorry if I rambled on for a while. That one's a big one for me. So
no, it definitely is something you're very passionate about, which is awesome. But let's get into what we're talking about today, which is all about visual journalism and visual journalism topics. And of course, the first thing we need to talk about, and this, of course, is sometimes where we talk about what's happening in the news just because the news is important. But the Washington Post laid off 300 of the newsroom's 800 employees, to include all of their photojournalists. All their staff photojournalists were laid off. And, again, I wanted to get your guys' take on this story in terms of not only what do you think about the story itself, but also the kind of larger impact on photojournalism in general, especially, your perspective, Ethan, coming from the academia world where you teach this type of stuff. What are your students talking about? I'm sure you all had discussions about this topic, especially as you're training people in the craft to go out there and do it. And again, from your point of view, Josh, what are your thoughts on this as well? So let's start with you, Ethan. What are your thoughts on sort of the Washington Post decimation of its photojournalism staff?
well, you and I were kind of talking about before before we got into the show, Dave, like there's really I think as our media landscape continues to evolve at like this like breakneck crazy pace and like everything is kind of a moving target, like the fragmentation of the attention economy and everything at all times. I think there's just like people don't value photojournalism the way they used to, and that's obvious. And I think that we've been like you know as long as I've been a professional journalist, I started at the beginning of like digital disruption. So my whole career has been this like chaotic like ride of like, like where are the jobs going, I went to Eddie Adams' workshop in 2013, and that was like a month or two after the Chicago Sun-Times pulled the same WAPO thing, where they pulled their entire staff, including John White, who is an absolute legend, by the way, and spoke at Eddie Adams. And just they called them all in. They're like, "Hey, we got an announcement. Thanks for your service, photo staff. Your service is no longer needed." And they gave their staff writers iPhones and said, "Congratulations, you're now promoted to photojournalist, and this is your tool." And so that was like 2013, So yeah, like the Washington Post, I mean, that's it's pretty gut-wrenching to see that many journalists like lose their job all in the same day because, like that's the industry that we're in, and it's very it's not a lot of job security out there, and it's very competitive and constantly shrinking. And that is what's most concerning is not just, the economic impact on those of us who are members of the fourth estate, right? And the labor markets, but like what it means for our society and our democracy. That is the most concerning part is that, you have all these billionaires who throw their money at, so many things, a lot of them seemingly evil, like let's be honest, right? And like if there's one thing that like, maybe should just be a wholly like philanthropic endeavor, like throw some money at journalism. The idea that Jeff Bezos can't afford to keep the Washington Post staffed with photojournalists is like it's not accurate, right? The guy could say, "Hey, I'm not going to let this happen. We're going to continue to be the place that shines a light in the dark because what? Democracy dies in the dark." So that's my thoughts on it. Like, yeah, it's awful. It's really sad. It's concerning. Everything that's happening in the fourth estate in the United States, and just if you understand, if you're media literate enough to understand this consolidation of and conglomerate, consolidation over time. It's not good for everyday people in any country. So yeah, sorry, I bring the gloom and doom, but you asked, so there you go.
Hey, that's the world we live in, and that's the state of affairs, right? And it's nothing new. Like you said, it's been going on for more than a decade. The continued decline of opportunities and jobs, which is why I continually ask, like, why is anyone going to a school to learn this craft, Because it's nearly impossible to make a living doing it in a staff capacity. Obviously, you two have both proven you can do it in a freelance capacity. So let me throw it over to you, Josh. What are your thoughts on the whole WAPO situation?
I have a slightly different perspective. First and foremost, I agree with Ethan in that it's definitely a detriment to society to have photojournalists at Washington Post lose their job and, to be able to continue to watch the decline of the journalism industry because we need that in order to hold corruption or corrupt people accountable. So anybody who's corrupt just, had a massive win. But the reality is that the Washington Post was losing $40 million a year. And it's just not a profitable business. And that's not our fault. It's not society's fault. And society falls victim to this circumstance. It really was the responsibility of the owners and managers and upper level marketing members of the Washington Post to figure out how to make it profitable so that journalism could thrive. And clearly they failed and they cut what they thought was the least important thing. It's hard to imagine that photography is the least important thing, but that was the decision they made. But I mean, it's not just the Washington Post. Like I've heard rumors of, some local papers here losing $20 million a year, and from like it just I wonder like between like LA Times and Chronicle and all the others, like how many of these papers are losing money and how long are they going to be able to survive?
Mhm.
These are questions that make me feel more and more appreciative every day that I still get to go and do these assignments and chase these stories that I love because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do it. Not because of my abilities, but because it may not exist that much longer. Don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we now have a lot more staff photojournalists who are either going to probably be looking at freelance, I imagine, or do you think that they'll be going into other career fields at this point? What are your thoughts?
So I just we can touch on this more in a little bit, but I was just at a festival called Exposure in Dubai. And while I was there, I met a Washington Post, I guess I should say former Washington Post staffer who had a big exhibition there. And a guy named Salwan Georges, and he's got two Pulitzers, but was a staffer for 9 years, like amazing photographer, super, super nice guy. And in the middle of his exhibition, like I was chatting with him and he was just like, just found out I lost my job. I'm like, what? Everybody did all at the same time.
Hmm.
There was a reporter for Washington Post named Lizzie, and she's like out in Ukraine or something, like working in her car with there's no heat, no electricity. So she's like writing a story with pencil because the ink from her pen was freezing in her car in the middle of a war zone, gets an email that's like, you're out of a job. I mean, it was just like abrupt. It's ruthless and very damaging to both the industry and society. But on the other hand, like from a business standpoint, how can you justify keeping a newspaper chugging along at a $40 million a year loss? I mean, sure, Bezos is filthy rich, and that's awesome, but I don't necessarily think he's the enemy. He's just a businessman.
Yeah.
Maybe he and or whoever is in charge of the Washington Post failed by not being able to figure out how to make the paper profitable. But like he built all these businesses, not the Washington Post, but he built Amazon and all these other businesses from scratch. So like him being rich doesn't like we shouldn't necessarily demonize him for being rich. I think if anything, just anger for them not being able to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would never
Yeah,
demonize the rich because when I'm a multi-billionaire, I don't want somebody to pull this video up and then throw it in my face, you know? That's
yeah.
the main reason I don't. But, to your point, yeah, I made the same argument to somebody else who was talking about this and how he decried the situation. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, the reason newspapers exist to sell ads, right? That's it. The reason they were originally created was to sell ads and put ads, and it was classified ads or, to market to advertisers because the product itself exists and subsists off advertising. If there's no advertising, there is no product. And we need to get, if we could, have like a publicly funded newspaper type system in this country that isn't
Well,
reliant on commercial support, similar like PBS or something, or it used to be, then I think, that would serve the people better. But that doesn't exist. And I don't
well,
see it
hold
existing in the
hold on.
future.
I mean, that model does exist. It's called subscriptions, right? Like, I mean, it's like
I'm
how do
talking
you
about government. I'm
how
talking
do you
government
publicly
funded,
fund
not people
newspapers? Like,
funded.
people pay the subscription fees, right?
Yeah,
Like, I freelance for the San Antonio Express News, but I'm also a subscriber, right? Because like I believe in the need for that institution, right?
sure.
And also it's like it's extremely valuable to me when it's time to go vote. I can go read the editorial recommendations of like my local newspaper and others,
Hmm.
like and then make and also follow their political reporting, right? Because I don't have the resource and the time to go, like to every stump speech that my candidates give, right? So more people need to. So one of the biggest ways the industry shot itself in the foot, or more in the face, is that we program consumers to believe that online news should be free, right?
Hmm.
At the beginning when digital came up, right? And everyone started building websites in like the mid to late 90s and like bringing more news online. Excuse me. That was that was really the moment where we could have said, okay, listen, you still have to pay for this service. And we didn't. We gave it away for free. And for a long time, we programmed consumers to believe that online news was free. And so that was the beginning. And ever since then, the entire news industry has been trying to figure out how to be profitable again. Dave, I don't know if you remember when we went to like what was it like Com 107 at Syracuse University, right? We were taught back in like 2004 that the profit margin for the newspaper industry was flipping massive. It was like 18%. And like you don't get profit margins at 18% in any other industry. Like the food industry is what, like two, three something? It's like razor thin profit margins. And in 2004, beginning of digital ascendance, okay, or toward the beginning of digital ascendance, the profit margins for newspapers were massive, and it's just more and more eroded over time, not just advertising but subscriptions. and nobody has been able to figure out in this constantly changing media landscape how you make like good ethical journalistic institutions profitable. And when I say good and ethical, what I mean is that I'm not talking about cable news, because cable news is like entertainment, right? Watch the advertisements and you know who's paying for it. Okay. And obviously that's the same with everyone. We're all relying on advertisements, but I think that newspapers especially are a different type of approach to news. And it's, I'm not naive, it's all, conglomerate and corporate media for the most part, but still there is something to be said about those differences in interest and forces at play there. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Like when I get talking about this, I'll kind of like go on for a while, so I will cut myself off there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember hearing that same, diatribe back when I was in college, and it's completely true to a degree that, obviously the major newspapers, yeah, because the push was, oh, put it online for free so that people buy the newspaper or something. I don't know what the logic was at the time or what they were selling as sort
They
of the
just didn't
logic.
take it seriously.
Yeah, yeah, it
It
was
was
such
just
this new
hubris.
thing, right?
It was hubris. It was like, oh, like of course, like they, dude, old newsmen thought of themselves as like master artisans of some sort, There was this very like full of ourselves kind of like untouchable culture there. It was this like it was a very like, hey, we're like we wield massive influence, and respect our vision. And they really had blinders on when it came to digital. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, no, absolutely. But I think regardless of whatever, established media would have done at the time, even if every single newspaper had established themselves as a pay service online, there still would have been disruptors. There still would have been digital only platforms, I think, that would have, eschewed the subscription model for the advertising model because they worked on lower margins or they could survive off of less, and I
yeah,
still think the model would have been disrupted no matter what. It's just,
yeah,
yes, the newspapers accelerated that because we train people to give the news for free. But yeah, I
yeah. I
guess.
definitely was not saying that's the only challenge, but it
Mhm.
really, I think, it really, like set things. It took like a decade before anybody really started, maybe not quite a decade, but it took a while before anybody really started going, whoopsies, like we really got to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So last thing
it
I'll
was more so the point of failure to react to data points at a pace that was necessary to, be successful.
right, absolutely. So then I guess the last point I'll bring up with regard to this topic is, does this latest layoff uh series, I guess, uh indicate or signify the end of photojournalism, at least staff photojournalism as a profession? Uh, as because I mean, there's only a few of these jobs left. Do we see the eventual decline to the point where the staff photographer or photojournalist in an organization goes away, becomes an extinct or job field, or will there always be that role? Or might we see perhaps this is the worst, it's only going to go better from here because now we've reached rock bottom? What do you guys think?
I don't think it's going to go away. I think what's going to happen is wires are benefiting from this, and they're also not benefiting from this because they're losing a big subscriber, right?
Right.
But they're also gaining a subscriber. It's like this weird dichotomy because um, Washington Post is not making the money that they need to, but so they are going to, after they laid everybody off, then they're going to have to rely on wire photos. So they're going to have to use them more. But on the other hand, they're losing so much money that I don't know what they're willing to pay for. Um, but a lot of the photographers that lost their jobs, they're thrown into the freelance world. And it's very different in the freelance world than in the staff world because not only do you have to make consistent income, somewhat consistent income, but you need to figure out how to become a marketer and how to generate like inbound or if you're a hustler, outbound leads to be able to do work. I mean, because the reality is, as a freelancer, you're just not going to be able to pay the bills only from photojournalism jobs. I'd be living in a van down by the river if the only source of income that I had.
Hey, hashtag van life. That's very popular nowadays.
But I'm not. I'm living in a nice house
Down by the river.
because I get corporate work. Not now. That's not the only answer. I have a couple friends that they moonlight as freelance photojournalists, and they have day jobs that just have flexible hours. So I don't think it's going to go away, but the available staff jobs are going to become fewer and fewer. They already are.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But also I think there's always going to be like some markets that, maybe are the exception to that rule. Like right now, I can say it. I know the San Antonio Express News, I believe, just hired a deputy director of visuals, and a couple staffers, and I think they're hiring one more. So their staff seems to be growing somewhat. I know, they made an acquisition, Hearst made an acquisition of the Austin Statesman Journal up the road, and they have this kind of like triangle going on, where they all support each other. So the Texas markets are seemingly doing okay, but yeah, they also have big freelance staffs, like the Express News. I'm a freelancer at the Express News. So yeah, I agree completely with Josh that probably most of the opportunities, and this is what I tell my students, most of the opportunities for photographers these days, there's plenty of opportunity for photographers and like media producers, I think still. But I wouldn't recommend anyone go into like film photography or photojournalism. You know what I mean? Like, have a diverse, like, creative portfolio, and like things that you can do that you enjoy, and that you can like find like those high paying corporate clients, and like some nonprofit clients if you're, and do photo. So it's like, to make it as, I mean, it's the only way I know how to do it, and it's like been my whole career after the Marine Corps, as a media guy, is is getting out there and being able to, offer photojournalism, videography, event photography, portraiture, sports photography, like you name it. Like that is, I think, there's still plenty of opportunity to be a multimedia storyteller in 2026. And so that's kind of what I try to promote at through our program in multimedia journalism, and just in general, like anybody comes through, it's like, hey, it's great if you can get that staff job, but that's like the last thing I focus on really.
Hmm.
That pathway, like that would be like, it's like, hey, if you can get it the old school way, and it really is the old school way, because we have like all these stories of like SAC alums who got their start at our scrappy little community college newspaper,
Hmm.
and went on, and now they're in the local and state, Texas journalism markets. I think those opportunities are going to continue to shrink while other opportunities are wide open. So that's what I kind of tell my folks.
Yeah, no, I mean anybody who's like shooting on film and making a living, let me know because that is the niche of the niche, and
Dude,
those are like the super artisan photographers,
I
like.
I have students that will come through oftentimes. I've had a couple who I love, and they're like friends now, but they come through with their like hipster camera like fetishes and stuff, and they're like, shooting on black and white all the time, and like, hey man, I'm here for all forms of photography and like whatever your creative vision and voice is, but like I can't help but like knee jerk roll my eyes.
Yeah,
So
actually,
I want to mention one more thing too.
sure.
Did you see the Civil War movie? The
Yes. Which kind
Kirsten
of American
Dunst.
are you? That one?
What's that?
The which one? Which kind of American are you movie?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But so one of the things I love about that is the young girl who wants to be a conflict photographer, right? And she just like latches on to Kirsten Dunst. She's got like a film camera.
yeah.
Like I will never like, I'm sorry, but if like a kid with a film camera was like, "Can I tag along with you to the Civil War?" I'd be like, "Get away from me. Get out of here. You're not serious about this." because you have a film camera and it's black and white. I'm like, go make art pieces and print them somewhere. But no, I do not want you as a liability with me. Like, anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
that is a person who has a level of disconnect from the real world that is just
I thought it was a great movie
immense.
otherwise, though. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it as well. No, it was a
But I
great
laughed
film.
at that. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, I thought that was a very corny, cheesy sort of subplot, but I like the focus on the photojournalist in the movie, that was a key focus of the entire through line of the film. I love
Yeah.
seeing like our profession on screen, but yeah, I was like, I thought, what was it? Who was the main lady? What was her name?
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, I thought Kristen Dunst did a great job,
Oh yeah,
trying to
she
play
was
that sort of
phenomenal.
hard-boiled, photojournalist type.
Yeah. I mean,
Speaking of film,
I
I
thought the
have a roll of
depiction.
undeveloped film right here on my desk, which I don't know how old it is, but I should probably get it developed. Just see what's on it.
I'll say about that movie, Dave. I thought the depiction of the, grizzled conflict photographer was like spot on and really well done. And that aspect helped me, suspend disbelief when these like journalists are like stacking with these dudes clearing through buildings and like going in the crossfire. I'm just like, no, no, none of that, but
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I'm going to put that aside because, some really good acting and some really good writing and some really good cinematography and directing. So,
right. Absolutely. Well, did anybody see the Super Bowl this weekend?
I saw
Josh
it.
did.
Josh, I
I
heard you
did
saw the
see
Super
it.
Bowl from a really good spot. You had like great seats or something? Talk to me
Yeah,
about your
I almost
experience.
got hit by a steamrolling football player who almost touchdowned into me.
Wow.
So that
People pay
happened.
good money for that.
Yeah, they would. People would pay a lot of money for that.
Talk
Did
to me about your
you
Super
did
Bowl
you did you get
documentation
run over
experience.
by the streaker?
He was close to me. I got some photos of him.
That would have
He
been
was
quite
he
a
was right in
story.
front of me.
I think I saw those in the gallery that Dave sent along. That's why I asked because like I saw that video and I was like, was there a streaker? I missed that,
It
and
wasn't nude. At least I
yeah.
didn't see him.
No, it was just a shirtless guy with like his social media handle written on his chest. One of those things. It was kind of whatever, but made for an okay photo. Like he was tackled by like eight guys and his face was all mushed into the grass. They didn't show it on TV, so whatever. Yeah, Super Bowl was awesome, man. As far as like the games go, I don't think it was the most interesting game, especially in the beginning. It was just like, you know, all kicks and
Yeah.
very little in the way of touchdowns.
Mhm.
But
Even my son was bored by it, and he's 11.
yeah, I was actually glad that it was pretty boring in the beginning because, to be perfectly honest, it was not only the first Super Bowl that I've covered, it was the first football game that I've ever been to in my entire life.
Oh wow.
True story. I'd never been to a football game before.
I hate you
Like
now.
at any level?
Well, I mean, like a professional football game. Just,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not really a sports guy. It's not
Yeah.
really my thing. Um,
Wow.
but you know, AFP asked me to do it, and I was like, up for the challenge. Like usually, I'm more into the natural disaster stuff or floods or like CEO portraits or whatever. Like sports just don't really do it for me.
Yeah.
And football, especially the Super Bowl, it's like a formidable challenge. Like even professional sports shooters, they like aspire to be able to do good work at the Super Bowl. So it's like it's a thing. So I went into it like feeling pretty nervous and like not real sure of myself. I even called up the newswire that hired me and was like, "You sure you want me to do this?" Like to be honest, like you might be better off having someone that's like very experienced at shooting the game. But as it turned out, the wire I was shooting for was way more interested in the halftime show and the post-game celebrations
Mhm.
because so I was shooting for AFP,
Yeah.
Agents France Press, which has an affiliation with Getty, right? So
Mhm.
everything I shoot and file goes up on the Getty wire. But the relationship with AFP and Getty is interesting because AFP is based in Europe, France, Paris specifically, but they have a heavy presence all over Europe and in South America, and Getty does not. But Getty has a huge presence in the United States, and the AFP doesn't have as strong of a presence. So their alliance gives both companies like complete access to each other's content,
Hmm.
right? So everything AFP does in whatever country shows up on Getty, and vice versa for AFP. So AFP was like, Getty's going to have like a million photographers there for the game, but for their clients in Europe and South America, they've really wanted to see like Bad Bunny and the celebrations and stuff because in reality, the actual content of the game itself is like more suited to an American audience.
Right.
So American media members and consumers are very interested in the game. So they weren't like that worried about it. And I think, because I've had like a lot of awards recently, so I think maybe they have hopefully not unrealistic, but high expectations for me. I guess I set the bar maybe a little too high for myself. But
What,
fortunately it went well. So that's good. And it
well, I'm
was
curious. I'm curious what you shot with, Josh. Like, what did you take? What was
so
your kit for this assignment?
So I shoot with two Nikon Z9s, and NPS, Nikon Professional Services, was at the game, and they were amazing. And they lent me a 180 to 400 f4 that has the internal 1.4 teleconverter in it. So you just
Yeah,
flip a button on the lens, and it switches from, at the maximum 400 to 560, but then it drops down from f4 to 5.6.
yeah.
So I used that lens almost exclusively for the game, except for when they were like, you know, running straight at me, and then I switched to my 24 to 70 or 17 to 35. I kind of alternated and just, as fast as I could. So that's
Well,
what I shot with.
awesome. I love that you're a Nikon guy. I am also a Nikon guy. I shoot with a Z8 and a Z6 III, and my sports lens that I bought that I would recommend if you ever have to do one of those again is the 180 to 600. It's like a
I have that.
5.6 to 6.3, and it is like really great. NPS, I checked out a 400 2.8 recently just to play with it, and that thing's amazing. But I'll never spend like 13 grand on a lens. So
Yeah, that's the thing as a freelancer. I mean, I also have the 180 to 600, and it's good, but it's slow and it's
yeah,
not great in low light. And for sports, it's really not ideal
yeah,
because you just don't have that bokeh that
yeah,
you really need to make it look like a professional photo and not like a snapshot. But it's a great, like, relatively inexpensive lens to use if you need distance and you don't really worry about the bokeh. The reason I
yeah.
got it is
Good.
because there are situations where, like, especially if I'm in a fire or something, and there's aircraft coming in over a hillside, and I want to get like way in close, but I don't want to bring like a, $15,000 lens out. That one's
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like obviously at certain distances, it still renders really nice bokeh, even at like 5.6, 6.3.
Sure.
But yeah, I definitely when I'm shooting sports, I'll be like, oh, it's a really great shot, but man, it'd be way better at 2.8.
Right.
So and then and you can only I only use it for like daytime shoots, right? It's like can't shoot like evening soccer with that lens because you're gonna lose the light and whatnot, and Friday night lights don't cut it. So.
Yeah, honestly, it was such a great lens. I'm kind of like I also have a 300 that I don't use that often, and like a 1.4 teleconverter. But I'm kind of like thinking about selling my 180 to 600 and my 300 and the teleconverter, and then buying like either a new or a used 180 to 400 f4 because it was just such a solid lens. I loved it.
Yeah, I haven't shot with that one. I might have to try that one out.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I don't do a ton of sports, so I'm not sure exactly what my use would be for it, but I don't know. Well, World Cup is coming up, and that's out here too. So I kind of have a feeling that I'm going to end up there.
Well, I mean, this could all be preparation for the LA 2028 Olympics, right? Who knows? You
Maybe
could be shooting the Olympics in a couple
I very
years.
well could. It's possible.
I mean, you're
I
right
never
there on the
really,
West Coast.
I never really wanted to be a sports guy, but maybe that gives me some sort of a different edge because I see things differently. I don't know.
The more you don't want it, the more you'll get it.
Hey, speaking of which, I'll give you a quick anecdotal story about something kind of funny and random that happened at the Super Bowl. Um, Post game, the celebrations are happening, Gatorade and the confetti and all that stuff, and that's cool. But then when they got into the trophy ceremony, I'm just like, they're shooting, guys are holding up their trophy. There's like a little makeshift stage they're standing on. And I look next to me, and this dude is, I didn't know who it was because I don't know anything about football. And this guy's standing there, and he's got like, I guess I'll refrain from cursing, although I'm tempted. He's got an eagle or some sort of like hawk or something on his shoulder, and I'm just like, what is the deal with this bird? It was just really weird. Like, why does this guy have this bird here? So I'm like, well, I'll grab a quick couple photos of it. So I had my 17 to 35. So I was like, trying to get in there, and it like was looking right at my camera. I'm like maybe, I don't know, 10 inches from this bird's beak, and it started like trying to peck me.
Oh my
And it's
God.
like wings are flapping and the feathers are going in my face, and it was like kind of crazy because it didn't have like the little gloves on its feet. It was just like out there,
Mm.
and I have all these photos of this bird like looking all crazy with like the guys holding up the trophy and stuff in the background, and it turns out that it was the Seahawks mascot bird that they bring out to the games that like flies over the field at the beginning
Hmm.
of each game, and
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. I was like, this is crazy that this bird's here.
Well, you got some good
Um,
shots of it.
so I thought that was kind of funny. I'm
Yeah.
glad it didn't peck my eyes out though.
I don't know. We both are. We're all glad your eyes are still intact. That would have been a story. We would have talked about that on the show.
I'd be out of a job is what would happen.
Since you're obviously not the only Nikon shooter out there, I'm curious anecdotally what kind of camera bodies you saw out there. I'm also curious because I know that many of the camera manufacturers like Nikon, Canon, and whatnot will actually come to these events with their entire catalog of lenses and bodies and stuff to support, the photographers who are on the ground. So did you experience that? Did you see that? And kind of anecdotally, what kind of camera bodies did you see there floating around?
Well, yeah, like I said, Nikon Professional Services was there, and
Hmm.
they were amazing. They also gave me a battery and a FTZ adapter.
Nice.
I had one, but they gave me one anyway. And I probably would have been fine with my two. I only had my two batteries for my Z9s, and they usually last a super long time. But
Hmm.
as it turned out, the way I had it set up, I was transmitting from camera. So I had it set to like the Ethernet thing. It was on, the function was on the camera. And so I had all the settings in there. So like when I was shooting, I would just be tagging in camera and then run over to one of the cables that they had on the field,
Mm.
plug it in. As soon as I plugged it in, everything that I tagged automatically went to AFP, and then they were catching it, and they were doing cropping, editing, and captioning and stuff, which made my job way easier because I would have been there till like 4 in the morning editing
Oh,
the 3,000 photos or whatever that I took. But as it turns out, that uses a lot more battery than I would have realized. And so I may have been able to get away with it with only two batteries, but NPS giving me another battery was clutch because I just swapped it out like as soon as I needed to. So it makes a huge difference to have them there. And also, they want photographers to be successful for their equip with their equipment so that uh, like in this conversation, I can say, I did a good job and I shot Nikon. But if I completely blundered it and it was like, oh, I messed this up, it didn't come out great, but these Canon shooters over there did great because they had someone else supporting them, like it's a good business move for them to do that. And it's awesome. In answer to your other question, I would say 80% of the cameras that I see out in the field are Canon. I don't see, it seems like Nikon shooters are like, oh, cool, you're Nikon. Like, I'm Nikon too. Not very many people are Nikon anymore. I'm glad the Z9 came out, the whole Z series, because they were like really not doing well.
mhm.
Their equipment's awesome. It's really good. I think they just don't have the financial backing that Canon does with their like super diverse portfolio of other businesses.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Nikon is really a camera company first. whereas Canon is like an everything imaging company, really, with happens to have a camera,
Yeah.
division. As a Canon shooter, nice to know that Canon is out there in big support. But interesting to hear about that.
Can I just
Um,
resurrect Nikon real quick though
Please.
after all this? Because I mean, you're not wrong. None of what you said is wrong. But I will say that I think the other part of it, like Josh, you mentioned, like hey, thank God for their Z line, particularly their full frame mirrorless cameras. Because yeah, like what was it about 2018 when those came out? And I was buying Sony's like A7R2 at the time, ready to like jump ship. I had like half Sony, half Nikon bag because I was just like, hey, I'm like, I'm a hybrid guy. I'm a like photos and film production, all in one. And so when Nikon, came to the scene with their Z series, yeah, they really resurrected themselves because they were making a lot of really poor decisions about what they were bringing to market for a while there. But since then, if you look at their numbers, they have gone pretty consistently up, and I think the acquisition of Red was a pretty cool and pretty big strategic move, and I'm pretty excited to see what Nikon continues to do in the filmmaking space because I've been making all my documentaries and documentary shorts with Nikon since for like more than a decade. And I've endured all the trash talkers, telling me how stupid and Nikon is and how I should like be with Sony and by the way, I'm a like Nikon, Sony, and then if I have to Canon, and I do have to at my school with Canon because all of our equipment's Canon. So
Mm,
I respect all of the big three, and I'll always tell people like they all make good gear.
mhm.
But I think Nikon has been slapping pretty hard for a long time with their Z line and their S lenses, and I think they're only going to continue to on that pattern. At least that's what I hope for. And yeah, and I will say Nikon Professional Services. I'm a Nikon, an NPS member, and it's great. I get all the notifications that like, hey, if you're going to be at the Kentucky Derby this weekend, we'll be there. Or if you're going to be at this massive, big like March Madness event, we'll be there. And I, never have invitations to those big events. So like, I don't get to go take advantage of them. But NPS and the professional services that they provide is also pretty rad and I think, worth the money. So that's my Nikon endorsement. And I'm not being paid for any of this, by the way. So just to say that.
I think it's
Hashtag
funny
not
that
sponsored.
I think it's funny that people trash talk your Sony move earlier because Sony makes Nikon sensors.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people realize that. And also, like, yeah, Nikon's doing a good job with that. But Canon just, they're hungry. They want that full market share. I
Yeah.
had a I had an exhibition at Visa pour l'Image last year, and while I was there, Canon was a sponsor, and they kept coming out like they heard like I had such it was okay. It was an awesome exhibition. I had like the biggest space in the event. It was like huge canvas wildfire stuff. And Canon obviously saw that and they like kept coming up to me and they were like, we want to give you some equipment and try and convince you to drop Nikon and go to Canon. And it was tempting, honestly. I was like, don't want to say no to, free equipment, but also like the whole learning curve of like starting over because I know Nikon equipment really well.
Yeah.
So the point is that like even though Nikon's doing well and Canon has like this huge market share, they just, if either company had their way, they would just eat the other company and just own it all,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, thank goodness for competition, right? And I'll just, like I always tell people, like Canon's great. They make great gear. Like, if you go invest in Canon, their ecosystem, you'll probably be happy and you'll make good photos, right? But like if you're a Nikon person, I think it's not even so much that it's a learning curve. It's just like I just do not like the ergonomics of a Canon and like the placement of things. And it's only because I'm programmed, for like Nikon. So I think it's just like that, like, it's a preference thing. And I think if you start with one, you're going to be biased toward it, is kind of how it goes.
That's all it is. I never chose Nikon over Canon. I can't even tell you that Nikon is better than Canon. Maybe Canon's better than Nikon. I have no idea. All I know is I started on Nikon, and because they're not interchangeable, you just stick with it, especially as a freelancer. Because once you start investing in lenses in one brand, it's a thing to switch. You got to
Yeah.
sell all your stuff and buy. It's like it's a cost, it's a learning curve. Like
Yeah,
I'm
and
fine with it.
I can say from experience, don't try to do a mixed bag. It's just
Yeah.
not. It's not a good idea. Be like, oh, I'll have half Nikon gear and half Sony gear. Tried it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, even having two different cameras, like I've tried having for a while, I had a D5 and what was the other one I had? Actually, you know what? When I first went to Z9, which I use now, I had a Z9 and a D5 for a little bit. And I was just like, sometimes I would get confused because the buttons are different. And when I need to act quickly, I shoot something and I pick up the other camera. Like it's kind of like, patting your head and rubbing your belly at the same
yeah,
time. Like maybe you could do it like sometimes, but if you're doing that while like riding a unicycle
yeah,
or something, it might be a little bit harder. So, even the camera models, it's good to just have consistency and congruency so you can like be more focused on the shots and rely on your muscle memory for, intricate like button pressing and stuff.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've never felt any particular allegiance towards any camera brand. I mean, I prefer Canon. That's just I like their color science, and I'm used to their ergonomics of their cameras. So I tend to, like Canon better. But I started out on Nikon. By the way, Dinfo still trains on Nikon cameras. You'll be happy to know.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
When
know
they
that.
upgraded to the Z series of cameras, they did that because they had Nikon glass, so they weren't gonna change over and throw away, thousands of dollars worth of glass. Although I'm sure there would have been a lot of people over at the Dermo to try and pick up all that glass they were getting rid of. But no, they kept Nikon in the family because of their commitment to Nikon and using the camera equipment. So they jumped over to the Z series when they upgraded. And, I've used Nikon, I've used Canon, I actually used Panasonic for a period of time. So I'll go where the best tech is. And for me, my personal preference is video tech because as far as I'm concerned, all the major camera brands have perfected, really high quality photos, like they can take photos really, really well. Any camera you pick up is going to be, I think, a stellar shooter. But where I like to kind of focus on is the video features. And in fact, recently I uh, purchased the Canon R5Cs for my video production business because I wanted something that could shoot 8K, that was in the professional world, that was a cinema camera, that was accepted by Netflix and all these other things, because I'm trying to be a filmmaker and whatnot. So that's where I went to personally. But yeah, use whatever you're happy with and whatever you like, and you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of fanboying over any particular camera brand personally, but some people like to do it. Before we end our show this week, I did wanted to just quickly touch base with you, Josh, on this Dubai thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. So there's this festival, it's a photo festival called Exposure. Drop the E in the front, it starts with X. So Exposure. And I'd never actually heard of it before. But when I was at Visa pour l'Image, some of the other exhibitors were talking about this festival in Dubai, and I ended up meeting the organizer for the event. He was at Visa and saw my exhibition, and I was asking him like, can I enter for your event too? Because this whole like international exhibition circuit is pretty cool because they're like all expenses paid trips to around the world. So I entered this category called IFPA. It's independent and freelance photographer award. Just kind of threw it in there, an entry like at the last minute. It was a wildfire entry, 14 pieces taken within the past 2 years, mostly LA fires. And because all the exhibitions, it was already full, just because I didn't hear about it until like right before everything was closed. Well, as it turned out, the my entry like kept rising up the leaderboard, and it rose all the way to the top, and I won the award, which was awesome. So I ended up sharing the award with another photographer who had an entry for like a conflict piece about Ukraine. It was like 15 grand was the prize, and so we split that, and we each got a pretty sweet trophy. But I feel like the big win, like yeah, there's the glory of like going up on stage and like there was like the sheik or sheikh as they say was there, and it was all these you know um Arab people. I think that's an appropriate term to use. I'm not 100% sure. But they were all there in their like white, dress up Arab outfits. And it was cool. But like being up on stage and having all that glory was awesome. But I feel like the big win was being able to be flown out there and put up for like a week. I ended up bringing my wife, my 3.5-year-old son, and our two moms. And so we just had like the best time rubbing shoulders with like probably some of the most inspiring photographers I've ever met in my entire life. It was like a who's who. There were 80 exhibitions. 80 photographers had full exhibitions. So it was like
Wow.
300 something photographers attending the event. Most of us staying in the same hotel. I met Salwan from Washington Post there, a bunch of National Geographic photographers, Pulitzer winners. There was not a single boring person at that for the entire week. It was awesome. I had a great time.
No, it sounds
That's
like a
right, man.
blast.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, well done. Did you go to Beastland while you were there?
Beastland. What is Beastland?
It's Mr. Beast theme park.
He has a theme park out there?
Yeah, it was just like for 45 days. So you probably weren't there at the same time. It was probably over by now, but
Oh,
I
okay.
had to
No, but
ask because my
I
kids are
did
big fans of
go.
Mr. Beast.
I mean, I know about Mr. Beast. I didn't know he had a theme park. That guy does everything. But I did go to. We did
He
a
should
couple
start a
tourist.
newspaper.
We did a couple touristy things. We went to the top of the Burj Khalifa, which was amazing. Um, did like the mall and went to Atlantis. But probably the coolest thing was this amusement park called Global Village. Global Village is I've never been to Epcot, but I've heard it's similar to Epcot in that like it's an amusement park, right? But the entire amusement park is massive. There is each country had its own little section. Like there was an Iraq land where like you could go under like this huge facade that says Iraq, and it's like imagine like an Iraq themed Las Vegas casino, and you walk in and there's like actual goods and foods and performances from that country, and there's no taxes because everything's imported from the country. And you could go across the street to Afghanistan and buy like a fur coat that's from Afghanistan, or walk, a little bit over to, Europe or whatever. It was like 180 countries or something like that, and it was a massive it was really cool, and there were amusement and like roller coasters and things in the middle of it. Just look it up on Google Maps. Global Village is a super cool amusement park. But Dubai's like got no shortage of exciting adventure things. I
Yeah,
feel like I could have spent a month there and not done all the stuff I wanted to do. It was a
yeah.
cool place.
Well, they've absolutely been trying to make themselves a tourist destination, without a doubt.
Yeah, what you won't hear is that public displays of affection are illegal there. So you
Mm,
can be arrested for kissing in public or
wow.
using a curse word. And the traffic from Sharjah, which is actually the emirate or state just north of Dubai where the festival was, to Dubai back and forth, it's only like 25 miles. But if you hit it with no traffic, it's like 25 minutes drive. But if you hit it in traffic, 3 hours. So it's like 10x worse than LA traffic. Worst I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow. Let me ask you this. If the same contest was being held in Saudi Arabia, would you go? And if you did, would you be okay if we canceled you?
Honestly, I would go, but I just wouldn't bring my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this, I, no, wouldn't do it. I'd go alone. But yeah, I
Okay.
would definitely go.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think that's going to reach the end of our episode this week. Before we sign off, any final words from our guests? We'll start with you, Ethan, and keep it to 30 minutes of final words, okay? Or less, all right?
Final words.
or
I
anything
don't
you'd like to promote, either yourself or otherwise.
know.
I know you
Yeah,
already threw up your website at the beginning
support
of the
your
show.
local psychedelic science initiatives. There you go. Whatever those might
Put that on a
be, or
t-shirt and I'll
at
wear
least
it.
look into them. If I can just offer one bit of advice to everyone right now, it's get out there and vote.
All
That's all I'll say.
right,
Yeah, until they
I got
stop,
two
until they
things.
cancel it. But yeah.
I got two things. I'll keep it short and sweet. Number one, I'm an open book. If anybody that is listening has questions or needs some advice, feel free to email me. You can go to my website. It's just edelsonphotography.com. Shoot me an email. Happy to give advice if you have any questions. And number two, and we can save a deeper look into this topic for another time, but it's a popular belief that AI is going to kill all the photography jobs and the industry is going to die, and I don't think that's true. So, if you are a photography enthusiast or looking to become more of a professional photographer, although the journalism industry is in dire straits at the moment, photography is far from dead, and there's a lot of amazing work out there, and I think it's going to continue. Although you really have to be at the top of your game in order to get traction. So work hard, but it's doable.
There you go.
100%
All right.
agree. Yes, everything
Well
Josh
said.
said.
Excellent, excellent. And unlike Josh, I'm a closed book and I sit on a shelf. So that's me there. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, by all means, reach out to any of us. Contact info and links everybody talked about will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, guys, for taking time out to be on the program. Really appreciate it. And as always, go to aroundthelens.com to find this and all the other episodes that we've posted about everything related to the world of visual journalism. All right, for Ethan and Josh, I'm Dave Murphy. This has been Around the Lens Roundtable Discussions, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.